What's going on, everybody? Welcome back, Face Off Sports Network. I'm your host, Anthony Servino. Follow me on X at The Real NFL Guru. Follow the show at the FF Face Off and at fffaceoff.com. We can be found at all the top social media and podcast platforms. Back with me, Pete Novat Super Nova 38. Pete, what's going on?
What's going on? Yeah, I don't think we've done a show just me and you since I first started with you guys. Happy to.
Right.
Yeah, I think it was my first show. I think me and you, we talked a little bit about Dak. We talked a little bit about Najee Harris. I was a little bit nervous because it was my first time on, but I think that's the last time we did a solo. Happy to jump on and get the show rolling.
So today we're going to be talking about the biggest ADP movers from July 1st to today. Using FFPC ADP, which is how I feel, and I think we all feel here is the most accurate ADP out there. Where the big money plays, that's usually where the sharps play, and we're going to get the best ADP because nobody's really messing around there. Pete, how do you feel? What do you feel about ADP? Because obviously it's a guide, it's not gospel, but I like to trust the sharps. That's where I play most of my leagues, and that's where I feel most comfortable getting player prices.
Yeah, I think the the site that we use for the FFPC, which is the 4for4 for the ADP, you're going to jump in, especially in Underdog and Best Ball. You're going to play in a lot of leagues where people are more willing to take risks when they're not spending a lot of money. So ADP kind of tends to be all over the place. But then when you jump in a tournament or, maybe a home league for redraft where it's a little bit more money on the line, like FFPC, you tend to see a little bit different play styles from people who are a little bit more tighter to the vest because there's a lot more money at stake and a lot more money involved. So I think it's a good guide to use. ADP is not everything, and This is why we do this every week, right? Because it's going to continue to change over the offseason.
Yeah, ADP fluctuates a lot. Now that we're getting, we're knocking on the door of NFL training camp. Now the ADP is really going to fluctuate as we're getting into the core of redraft season. Beat writers speak, coach speak, players saying they're in great shape. What rookie's going to take a starter's job. That probably won't happen, but it's going to cause an ADP dip one way, then the rookie's ATP to spike. So there's a lot to take into consideration. So we're going to be doing these shows probably weekly moving forward.
Yeah, I like these shows a lot. Got a couple people in here in the house on YouTube on real time, so get your guys. Albert, what's up, man? We appreciate you jumping in. And Deontay on Twitter said, Pete, what's up, man? Thanks for tuning in.
So let's get right into it. We're going to start with, let me get my show sheet. Let's start with Chargers wide receivers. And this is an interesting one because a few shows ago when, in the morning when we are reviewing ADP, sometimes we'll see quite a few players from the same team all go one way or another. And a few weeks ago it was the Tennessee Titans. Everybody was going up. Now this morning it's the Chargers. And I'm going to pull up the ADP now. We have a graphic here for the Chargers. Don't want to forget.
Yeah. Hawk worked hard on that. There you go.
So ADP for the Chargers. We're going to start with Lad McConkey. He is up 8.1 spots. Quentin Johnston's up 7.7 spots. Josh Palmer up 8.8 spots. DJ Chark, free agent edition, down 24.8 spots. And even Hayden Hurst, the tight end, is up 32.3 spots. So we have 4 of the top drafted pass catchers going up. One, probably not drafted a ton, DJ Chark, going way down.
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to just start off the bat here and just say, if I'm not taking Lad, I actually like Josh Palmer the most. I know there's the Quentin Johnston, and I'll give my take on Johnston. And I know the Roll is in here and said he's a Chargers fan, so I'm sure he'll give us some of his input on it as well. But I think Josh Palmer actually had 5 games of 99 plus receiving yards in the last 2 seasons. So guys like Garrett Wilson, Michael Pittman, DK Metcalf, DeAndre Hopkins, Terry McLaurin, those are the kind of guys around him that are at a similar mark in terms of receiving yards. And Palmer's a guy that's going to be on the field when they're in the 2 receiver sets. I don't know about Ladd, right? If they're going to run this heavy formation, I don't know if Ladd's going to be on the field for those 2 wide receiver sets. So that does scare me a little bit. I do think Ladd will be the number 1 option. But when it comes to Quentin Johnston, I don't know if there's been a fall from grace much harder than a guy like him. I mean, the community has completely turned their back on him, and rightfully so. This is a guy that, he's a big player, but he plays small. He's a prototypical X receiver with his size, but he just can't play big. He plays small, and he's not a good enough route runner to play in the slot. So where do you put him? He's going to need to take a massive jump this season for me to ever be in on him. But I do like Josh Palmer. He's actually the guy I'm actually targeting the most. I know, Anthony, you're probably going to have a little bit of a different take, so I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on this one.
So I'm very much in on McConkey, and he's one of my more drafted receivers, and people who listen to the show or know me through the years, it takes a lot for me to buy in on a rookie, especially as much I'm buying in on Ladd McConkey. He's a do-it-all receiver, right? Like, he can be a possession receiver. He can play in the slot. He can play on the outside. And these other receivers on this depth chart, they're not really impressive. Like, you bring up Quentin Johnston. The big debate last year was like Addison or Johnston. I was a big Jordan Addison guy. Don't have any Quentin Johnston, thank God, because that didn't work out. Now, anything can happen. New coaching staff, new system, maybe a second-year type of leap. Sure, that is in the range of outcomes. We can't just talk about the bad. We do have to say, hey, it can happen. Josh Palmer, he's been given opportunity. You got to remember, this Chargers wide receiver room, when we're talking about Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, they both missed time. In the past 2 seasons, Josh Palmer has had a chance to be the guy, and he hasn't really delivered. He's a high-floor PPR player. Ladd McConkey is almost like, I don't want to call him like a unicorn, but I feel like he's going to bring a safe floor, and with this team, he's going to have a little bit of ceiling. And here's why. Everybody's talking about it's Harbaugh, and it's who's the OC? It's Greg Roman. They want to play ground and pound football. They want to run the ball. Do they have the defense to play that way? Let's look at Michigan with Harbaugh. Terrific defense. Greg Roman's teams with the 49ers and the Ravens. Terrific defenses. This Chargers defense is going to be a mess. And if they are trailing, they're not going to be running. They're going to be throwing the football with Justin Herbert, one of the best passers in the NFL. And I think Ladd McConkey is going to be a prime beneficiary of that.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think you put it in a nice way to say, yeah, Josh Palmer is probably, at best, he's probably a wide receiver 3. He's going to be a high 4. One stat I wanted to point out, your buddy Jim Coventry, who you do shows with on the RotoWire side, he pointed out Josh Palmer in games where Mike Williams was out due to injury, he pretty much played that Mike Williams role. Yeah. I think he said James Williams. Mike Williams. He played in the Mike Williams role, and he averaged 4.25 receptions and 70 yards a game, which really isn't too bad. And he also missed 7 games due to injury. So, I mean, he's going to be a decent guy with a high floor, I think. And I think if I had to put my money on it, Josh Palmer will run the most routes in this offense this season. That would be my claim. I think Ladd can play in the 2 receiver sets. I don't think he will as much. I think he can, but I think Josh Palmer is going to be the guy that probably runs the most routes, so he has the highest floor in my opinion.
I don't hate the take on Palmer. Past 2 years, only been in the league 3 years. So the past 2 years, he's finished with at least 10.6 fantasy points per game on average. So, yeah, he's a high floor player. But again, like the guy that I want is Ladd McConkey, just because I think he is, when it's all said and done, going to be the best receiver on this football team.
Yeah, I can get down with that.
Anything before we move off of this on Hayden Hurst? Obviously, friend of the brand, friend of the face-off. We do the mental health pod-a-thon with Hayden Hurst. But got to be honest, sometimes, like, Hayden Hurst has never really been the greatest fantasy football asset. Is this the year where it finally comes to fruition? Because there is going to be tight end targets in the Greg Roman offense. is there anything here with Hayden Hurst? Because again, his ADP right now up 32.3 spots. So, he's being drafted within the top 225 picks, obviously a very late round dart throw tight end. But are we taking shots on Hayden Hurst?
So Hayden Hurst maybe for best ball, but honestly, he's going to be a streamer. I am interested in him. The reason I say that is because this is a team in the Chargers that's going to run play action a lot. I actually saw a statistic today that said teams that run play action when it comes to fantasy points per route for the tight end position almost doubles when they're running play action as opposed to non-play action. So, that's an 80% boost actually over the last 3 years with teams that are running play action when it comes to the points per route. So this is a team that, now granted, they did switch OCs, but they were, I want to say they were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They were about 7th in play action last year, which is decently high. And that's more, than most. Plus, they're getting an offensive-minded coach that likes to run the football. So I do think they'll run a lot of play action. I'm not salivating over Hayden Hurst. I'm not sitting here saying this is a guy you want to target, but he's definitely a guy I would be interested in to stream or just to have in my watch list. If he can produce, I want to maybe take a chance on him if I'm kind of streaming my tight end position at my bench. So.
Yeah, I'm not exactly gushing over Hayden Hurst either, but considering the other tight ends on this football team, I think they have Don Parham, whose ADP is dipping as well. If you're in a tight end premium, I don't hate chasing the potential targets that Hayden Hurst can get. And again, like tight end premium, where you're getting those extra points per reception, why the hell not? He's going behind guys right now, and FFPC is tight end premium. So if you punt tight end, you want to grab a couple of back end guys. He's going behind guys like Dawson Knox, Jatavian Sanders, Jelani Woods, Tucker Kraft. Like, why not? Give me the starter, right? Give me the clear-cut starter. Even like Isaiah Likely, he's going as 153rd player off the board. Hayden's going 212. Like, Likely is a entrenched backup. Doesn't make sense. And I like Likely. Really good player when Mark Andrews is out. But we're drafting Isaiah Likely thinking Andrews going to miss some time. I don't like drafting like that.
No, I'm not a fan either. So I definitely behind you on that. But I don't have much else to say on Hayden Hurst. I know he's a friend of the show. I think I actually stashed him in Dynasty in like a 14-man league where it's really thin. So I don't mind stashing him if you're in a deep Dynasty league as well.
So let's move to our next set of ADP movers. And this is going to be fun because we haven't talked about this grouping on this show a lot. So I'm happy we get them in here. And this is the Browns duo of Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper. Now, Cooper's ADP is up 5 spots, and he's being drafted 54.1 player off the board. Deshaun Watson up 4.5 spots. He's being drafted at 137.1. What are your thoughts? I guess let's start with Amari Cooper.
Yeah, I happen to like Amari Cooper. Last season, I personally think yards per route run is a very good indicator for fantasy success. Last year, Amari Cooper was 12th in the NFL for yards per route run. Fantasy points per game, he was 17th. And he's being drafted as like the 20, I want to say like around the 29th receiver off the board. I just can't see Amari Cooper unless he gets injured, finishing as the wide receiver 29. This is going to be a guy who, he's gonna probably be a mid to high wide receiver too. And with Watson, he actually had this a 76.3 catchable ball rate, which was the 5th best in the NFL last year. So surprisingly enough, you would think that Flacco would increase Cooper's production, but he still saw some good targets and a decent target share from Deshaun Watson. So I happen to like Amari Cooper. When it comes to guys like Cooper, I build teams around guys like him in a sense of if I have two very high upside guys and I'm looking for a high floor as my third guy, he's the kind of guy I'm looking at. I'm not that stoked if he's my second receiver, though I think he can, like I said, produce as a mid wide receiver 2 to a high wide receiver, a mid wide receiver 2 to a high wide receiver 2, but I just don't know how much farther up he can go from there. So Amari Cooper is definitely somebody I am targeting if I'm going for my third receiver and if I go wide receiver heavy in the first couple rounds.
Yeah, Amari Cooper, he's an interesting player. Some people love him. Some people aren't buying in. He's never really popped, right? If you go back, and Cooper's been around a long time, since 2015. If you go back to his career, his best finish when it comes to fantasy points per game was 2019. He was a wide receiver 14. Now, back-to-back years with Cleveland, he finished as a wide receiver 17 in fantasy points per game, and that was with erratic quarterback play. What I like about the situation this year, the Browns offensive line, I think PFF has them as their projected fourth best. They were a little bit banged up last year. They're going to be healthy. Deshaun Watson, we assume he's going to be healthy. The last time we saw Deshaun, he was playing his best football in the game. He got knocked out against Baltimore, I believe. But Jameis Winston, like I don't think, and I bring this up when we talk about the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, how Tyrod Taylor raises everybody's floor if you're drafting Jets assets because Tyrod's a better backup than Jets starters the past 2 years. Well, like Jameis Winston, say what you will about him. Is he a good NFL quarterback? He is not.
Deshaun Watson?
No, I'm talking about Jameis Winston.
Okay.
If Deshaun goes down again.
Yes.
They now have Jameis Winston, who we know, go back to that 1 year with Todd Monken with Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think he was pushing like 5,000 yards passing. So we know he can support fantasy assets. So no matter what quarterback we have under center for the Cleveland Browns, I think we could buy into Amari Cooper as where, we're not going to worry because like in between Watson and Flacco, there was who were those bums they had under center last
PJ Walker,
Dorial Thompson, PJ. Yeah. We don't have to worry about that this year.
No.
And that makes me like Amari Cooper more. And he's also the alpha. I get they brought in Jerry Jeudy and they have Elijah Moore. Amari Cooper is the alpha wide receiver 1 on this football team. Had 128 targets last year while missing 2 games, $132 and playing all 17 in 2022. Like his floor is not bad in the past 2 years. Again, with the erratic quarterback play, at least 1,160 yards receiving and 5 touchdowns. Now, like, is there a world where we get that 2022 touchdown number? He had 9. And then he gives us maybe last year's receiving yards number, which was 1,250 in 15 games. If we can, and 17.4 yards per catch, if we get a combination of those 2 seasons with yards, reception pace, yards per reception efficiency, and touchdowns, I think there's a chance that Amari Cooper, we could draft him, and hey, maybe he's a top 15 receiver this year.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. I think top. I think it's really ageism, right? It's constant. Same with the James Conner thing. Like Amari Cooper just feels like he's been around for so long. It's like people don't want to be stuck holding the bag if he falls off. But there's just been no suggestion that would say that he is. He looked just as good. His route running was crisp last year. Jerry Jeudy comes into the fold, but I'm not really worried about him stealing targets. They don't throw to the running back position a lot. Nick Chubb has never been a big target hog. So yeah, I'm definitely interested in him. One thing I wanted to note, because we do have a lot of people in here, 14 on YouTube, 500 on Twitter. Wow. So thanks everybody for being here. We do have the Chad Johnson autographed jersey giveaway that we are giving away at the end of the show. So stick around if you are already signed up and you're watching right now. Stick around. We'll spin the wheel. And we'll select a winner for that towards the end of the show. But I just want to make sure if you're here and you are in the actual giveaway, just hang around with us and we'll announce it on Twitter just in case you miss it.
Now, let's also note before we go off of Cooper, 85th in catchable target rate, 79th in target quality rating. If those targets are a higher quality level this year, again, like I like getting my hands on some Amari Cooper, and he's being drafted like he's going 54th player off the board. So he's going around guys like Zay Flowers, Stephon Diggs, George Pickens, Tank Dell, T. Higgins. Outside of George Pickens, I'm taking Amari over all of those guys.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about it, I think, on the show 2 days ago. I think, like, Zay Flowers is one of those polarizing guys where, like, I prefer Amari Cooper, who's a slightly cheaper cost. So, yeah, I'm down with that. Did you want to touch on Deshaun Watson, or did you want to move on?
We can for a minute.
Okay. So go ahead.
No, I mean, Deshaun's another guy. Like, I think the thought process of getting Deshaun from his Houston years, that's gone. I, for one, was one of those people that when he came to Cleveland, hey, we're going to get that Houston Deshaun. He's only 1 year or so removed. That's gone. That's not happening. But can we get a better version of Deshaun Watson if he can stay healthy and this offensive line can keep him upright? And, this is another guy where price comes into play. Like, Deshaun Watson's being drafted as like QB 22 right now. I think that's a little bit ludicrous. Now, I know the quarterback position's very crowded. There's a lot of people you can make a case for, but I wouldn't mind, like, if you're drafting Aaron Rodgers, let's say, because look at the weapons around him, he's going to bounce back. The offensive line's better. Then you're drafting Aaron Rodgers at QB 20, QB 21, thinking, well, he can finish as a top 12 quarterback, closer to the back. Why can't we get a top 15 season out of Deshaun Watson? And if you're drafting Watson at QB 22 and he gives us a QB 15 or 16 season, that's a healthy return on investment.
Yeah, look, and honestly, I think Watson, for all the off the field things, I mean, time heals wounds, and I'm not saying anything that he did was justified or did anything right. I mean, he's a piece of crap for what he did. But over time, right, mentally, that's taxing. And I don't think people are really honing in on it anymore. It's not a talking point. He's been on the field. We've seen it happen. Like, for him, I think he can kind of put those to the side and just kind of focus on playing. And I think he should, as long as the shoulder is healthy, I think he should be fine. Now, will we see Deshaun Watson from Houston? Probably not. But I mean, it's not like this guy's old. I mean, he's still decently young, in his high 20s. Like, the talent is still there. It's really just mentally for Deshaun Watson. I don't think his athletic and physical abilities just are gone. So I really don't think it'd be that crazy to say that he could even finish as a top 12 guy, not top 12 high, but I'm saying like 12, 13, 14. Like, I think where you're getting him in terms of drafting him at his ADP in the 20s, like, he should definitely beat out that ADP. Now, is it worth it in terms of how much more will he beat out those quarterbacks in that range on a game per game basis? Well, that's something to be said, but you're getting him at such a low cost that I could certainly see him beating out even Caleb Williams. I mean, he's a rookie, but he's going pretty high. And I like Caleb Williams' situation, but we still got to see it, right? Yeah. Matt Stafford, love Matt Stafford, but this is a guy, the fantasy community likes guys that can run, and Deshaun Watson can run, and he can create. And they just got an upgrade with Jerry Jeudy to add another pass catcher. So, yeah, I definitely like Deshaun Watson as a second quarterback if I get somebody really good in the beginning, one of those top tier guys. I'm good waiting on a guy like Watson as my second quarterback at the end of the draft.
Let's go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Pete. And last year it was a Mike Evans show, but Chris Godwin kind of falls by the wayside in this whole equation. Chris Godwin's been a fairly solid high floor slot receiver for most of his career. The recent reports are, and now, with I'm drawing a blank on the OC last year, Dave Canales, who's now with the Carolina Panthers. He's gone. They are now planning to use Chris Godwin more in the slot where he belongs. And ever since that report, which was probably a week ago, we're seeing his ADP kind of correct itself. It's up 11.8 spots. He was being drafted as 79.7 player off the board. He is now going 67.9. What is the temperature for Deshaun Watson for Chris Godwin?
Yeah, Chris Godwin had 1,000 yards last year. It was not his best, but to Anthony's point, right, he was playing in a role where it wasn't really suiting him, right? I mean, he's not an outside receiver. This is a guy who is a good route runner and has always succeeded in the slot. I mean, he had 295 snaps in the slot and he had 588 out wide in 2023. I think it was Hoff that said that he had, I want to say like 74 or 75% in seasons prior to that. And this was a significant drop off. I think he was in 30 or 40 percentile, or 30 or 40% of his snaps were in the slot, which is a huge drop off. And he still had 1,000 yards. He's had 1,000 yards in 4 of the last 5 seasons, and he's had 119 targets in 4 of the last five seasons, a minimum of 119. So this is a guy who he gets open. He they're outside of Mike Evans. Yes, I mean they drafted McMillan. I like him as a prospect. Trey Palmer's a guy. But like, there's not a big. I mean, Cade Otton. I like Cade Otton, but he's not a target hog. He's not an elite separator at the tight end position. He's not going to be calling for the ball like that. The biggest competition for the number 2 spot in receptions is Rachaad White, probably on this team. Outside of that, it's really Mike Evans. So I like Chris Godwin at his price. Guys that are going around him in terms of FFPC, you have guys like Christian Kirk, T. Higgins. I probably prefer those guys over Godwin. Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin is very much similar to Chris Godwin, right? Doesn't get into the end zone, always 1,000-yard receiver, catches a decent amount of passes. The difference is Terry McLaurin has had bad quarterback play around him. He's going to get a better quality targets, right? So you'd think that should improve. Chris Godwin's had decent quarterback play. He had Brady, then he had Baker Mayfield, he had Winston before that. So I'm probably drafting most guys. The one guy close to him, Keenan Allen, I'd probably go with Chris Godwin over Keenan Allen. But other than that, I'd probably rather Calvin Ridley, even, who's going slightly behind Chris Godwin in terms of FFPC ADP right now.
Yeah, when we look at Chris Godwin last year, he actually had a better season than he did his final year with Brady in terms of efficiency. That 2022, 9.8 yards per reception, back up to 12.3, his most since 2020. If we look and go back to 2019, Chris Godwin from 2019 to 2022 has never finished worse than the wide receiver 15 in fantasy points per game. And 2 of those seasons, he was the wide receiver 2 in fantasy points per game and the wide receiver 7 in that category. Also, since 2019, that was 5 seasons. So 4 of those seasons, he played at least 14 games. And all 4 of those seasons, he's gone over 1,000 yards. In the 2020 where he played in 12, he had 840 and was on pace to get over 1,000 yards. So we know what we're going to get out of Chris Godwin in terms of the high floor. But if we look at some of his other finishes, like if this offense starts to click and they're playing Godwin where he should be out of the slot, then there's no reason why to think that he can't. At worst, he returns value at his current price. Yeah. But in a perfect world, I'm not saying he's not going to be a wide receiver 1, but like, can he finish as a top 30, maybe even a top 24 receiver? I don't think it's crazy, but again, it's also up to how does this offense play? How does Baker Mayfield play without Dave Canales?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what he is at this point, though. He's going to be a guy that probably finishes in the top 24. You know what you're getting with Chris Godwin. It depends on your draft build, right? We talked about it with like Amari Cooper, right? Like it depends where you are in your draft. I'm not going into drafts excited to draft Chris Godwin, but depends on how my team is, right? If I have a lot of upside guys and I need someone who's a little bit more stable, Chris Godwin's going to be able to provide week-to-week stability for you.
And I hate to be that guy. Godwin's 28 years old, entering his age 28 season. Mike Evans is going to be 31 very soon. I think it's September. I get he was fantastic last year, and he's been absolutely money. But is this the year where maybe he gets caught up by injury? Maybe age catches up to him. So there's some other factors that we need to think about here. Like Evans, let's say what it will, like as great as he was last year, he was very, very big play. He was number one amongst wide receivers in deep targets. Is that going to be sustained? He had 13 total touchdowns. Is that going to be sustained? I know he hit that number in 3 out of the past 4 seasons, but again, different OC. What the hell version of Baker Mayfield are we going to get? So I don't know. I feel like when we're looking like last year, like Evans, his ADP, if you drafted Mike Evans last year, he was very, very cheap. And he was a league winner. There's a lot more risk involved drafting Mike Evans as a 23rd player off the board right now.
Yeah.
Where Godwin, if you want a piece of this offense, Godwin's a nice safety net.
Yep. Yeah. Like I said, week to week stability. You're definitely going to get with Godwin. Yeah, there is that risk. Evans falls back to the Amari Coopers and the James Conner. People don't want to draft him because of the age, and they're worried that they're going to draft him and he's going to fall off, right? And he continues every year to just prove people wrong, right? So, we never know with Evans. Could this be the year? I don't know, but we'll see. Aaron came in here and said that Godwin's going to feast. I know Aaron's a Bucs fan, so he would probably know pretty well on how this offense will look. I did want to say, we got a decent amount of people here watching on YouTube. If you haven't given us a thumbs up already, please do so. It really does help out the show as we kind of move things along here. I think we wanted to move over to what do you want to hit the Rams next?
Yeah, let's go to the Rams.
Okay. Yeah, let's go to the Rams. Take it.
So, Rams, this backfield, this offense overall, their ADP is all over the place, but primarily this backfield has been the talk a lot of this offseason because of Blake Corum. They were a lot closer. Now we're starting to see a little bit of a divide. Now, I think it was another report last week stating that, I think it was a beat reporter, I don't have it in front of me, basically saying that Kyren Williams will be the starting running back in this backfield. I don't really refute that at all, considering the season Kyren had. Now, Blake Corum comes in, highly touted rookie. He can certainly cut into some of that workload. Now, let's start with the ADP. Kyren is up 4.2 spots. Corum is down 6 spots. Kyren, 20.9 ADP. Corum down to 116.5. I have said the same take about the Arizona Cardinals with Connor and Trey Benson, and I'm going to use the same comparison here. Last year, everybody loved Charbonnet coming out. The landing spot with the Seattle Seahawks was terrible because they had an entrenched, productive, and primarily healthy starter in Kenneth Walker. Same thing in Arizona with James Conner, at least for one more year. I'm going to use the same narrative with the Los Angeles Rams because if you ask me, like Kyren Williams has been their best running back since Todd Gurley, and it's not close. And I think with the McVay history, I think he wants that. I don't want to say, I don't know, bell cow is the right word, but he wants a back that he could feature in this offense. And I think Kyren Williams is the guy. Kyren was hyper productive last year. One of the best fantasy, I think it was on waivers in week 1 for a lot of teams. And again, like running back 2 in fantasy points per game, running back 7 overall. Did miss a couple games, only played in 12 games. But when you talk about efficiency, 8th in true yards per carry, 13th in yards per touch, 8th in evaded tackles, 20th in breakaway runs, 17th in yards created per touch. Very, very good running back. Yeah. Surprised the hell out of everybody. Because I certainly did not see this version of Kyren Williams coming. But where are you, Pete, with the addition of Blake Corum? Do you see McVay kind of taking away from this volume workload that Kyren Williams has? Because I particularly don't see it unless Kyren struggles.
So, personally, I think this is we're at a perfect point in the offseason where the rubber kind of starts to meet the road, where rookie offseason hype is dying down. Okay, the NFL draft is now almost about 2.5, 3 months, has passed, and people are starting to wake up, right? Blake Corum, and the reason we look at the FFPC is because, not to say just because you spend more money you're sharper, but I think there's a lot of this rookie fever that tends to happen, and people get burned by it. I mean, look, I have a couple of shares of Blake Corum in Underdog Best Ball. I'm not going to sit here and say that I haven't gotten a little bit of exposure, but that's really more due to Kyren's health than it is due to opportunity share. Kyren has dealt with some injuries, right? He's a smaller back. He had a foot injury that kept him out of OTAs. And so I worry more about the health with Kyren, and can he hold up with a full workload, healthy, the rest, like for a full season? Because, I know Nate came in here and he said the difference between Seattle, and I think it's a good point, is McVay uses the weapon that he wants and that he likes, right? And I don't think they're going to shy away with Kyren Williams. They're not invested in Kyren Williams. This is a guy they got for nothing, okay? So at the running back position, we say it all the time, but these guys, this isn't a guy where they drafted like a Bijan Robinson, right? Who is still young in his career, right? They see a future. They took him in the first round. They definitely want to ease his workload. They're going to use him, but they don't have a future invested in Kyren Williams. So I could see them not being hesitant to give him the full workload. And if he gets hurt, he gets hurt. But Blake Corum is a guy that they feel comfortable that can tote the rock if Kyren does get hurt. And I think it's more they drafted Corum for future and safety blanket, and I think Corum has a chance to take the job maybe next year, not this season. But I think at his current cost, I am fading Kyren Williams. I do have a couple of shares of him that I got when he was a little bit cheaper after they drafted Blake Corum and things got moved around. Now the price has adjusted. He's sitting at 20. I'm not paying a mid second round pick on Kyren Williams. I like the guy. I really do. It's just too expensive, and I feel like you're just drafting him at his ceiling. And I prefer some of the guys. I prefer to swing on a guy like Isaiah Pacheco or get Derrick Henry a round later, to be honest with you. Pacheco, you can get 2 rounds later. I'm not saying. I'm just saying in terms of the cost.
Yeah, I mean, let's focus there. Now, to be fair, Blake Corum is getting that Sean McVay hype so far this offseason, and Puka Nacua got similar last year. And if you follow that bouncing ball, I'm not saying so, we have to give both sides of the equation. There is a shot that Blake Corum is a thing, but I just don't know if I want, and I'm with you, I don't think I want a lot of this backfield. You mentioned the Kyren Williams injury, and then you mentioned his price, right around player 21 off the board, 20.9. And if we look at the running backs going around him, I'm all in on Derrick Henry. I much rather, and this is obviously not a dynasty take, but in redraft, give me Derrick Henry. We know, at least we think we know what we're going to get out of Derrick Henry in this offense with the threat of Lamar Jackson and the RPO. I don't know if I'm taking, if you put a gun to my head and say Pacheco or Kyren, I'm probably going Kyren Williams.
Sure. I mean,
with those two.
Yeah, I mean, in a vacuum, yes, I would take Kyren.
Pacheco warrants his price either.
Really? Because I really don't see them. I just really don't see them having a second back that's going to spell him. I think Pacheco's a true 3-down back. He's tough.
But he's another guy. He runs so violently where there's an injury risk there too. Yeah, I get it. I love my Rutgers jersey, guys. So, I love Pacheco, and I'm a Broncos fan. So, I'm not rooting for the Chiefs, that's for sure. I don't know. I like his play style. I like that they added more weapons on the offense for the Chiefs that should give Pacheco lighter boxes. I mean, now you're dealing with
they have field stretchers in Brown and Worthy that like they're going to teams are going to have to bring an extra DB out, right? Should lighten up the box for Pacheco, and I think that should help. And their offensive line should take a step forward in some of the young guys that they brought in from last year. So I like him. Jamie did come in here and said, what percentage of snaps do you think Kyren will get? I honestly, if Kyren's healthy, I think he's probably getting about 80.
He saw an 83.9% snap share last year. Obviously, I don't think there was a backup there remotely talented like a Blake Corum. So, yes, that could change things.
Wait, you're not excited about Rolls Royce, the new Cowboys running back?
Shut up. Get out of here with that. That's why I'm drafting Zeke in fucking round 14, wherever he's going.
Yeah. Yep. Right there with you.
But, it's just the Kyren price. Like, there's a teardrop for me after Derrick Henry. We go look at the top running backs before we move off this talking point. CMC, Bijan, Brees, Saquon, JT, Henry, Gibbs. And I say Gibbs last. I think Gibbs is going way too high.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's a teardrop. Then we have Kyren, ETN, Achane, teardrop, Pacheco, Mixon. If I'm not getting one or two of those top guys, if I'm say doing a heavy, robust running back build, I'm waiting. Let me go after the Kenneth Walker, Aaron Jones, Ram Stevenson, Connor, Zamir White, Najee. I'll wait. I just don't love some of these backs going in this middling, third, fourth round price point right now.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Anytime I'm drafting right now, it's pretty much either I'm taking a running back in the first, the second round, and it stops at JT and Saquon in the second round. And then it's only Henry. It's only Henry is the only other guy I'm taking. At that point, I'm probably waiting until Pacheco comes around. I'm not drafting much ETN. But for the most part, it's really just like a running back in the first round or two. And then if not, I'm fading until I get to round 4, 5, or 6. And I'm probably taking a lot of receivers to start off.
So let's go next. Let's go to the Chiefs. Let's go to somebody that we talk about a lot on and off the air. We haven't talked about him on air recently, but that's Rashee Rice. I think we're both in agreement here on Rashee Rice that, he's about at a point where it makes too much sense not to draft him. Early offseason, before Hollywood Brown, before any off the field issues, Rashee Rice was going a late second, third round pick. Now Rashee Rice, he's going pick 91, right around there. He's actually up 8.3 spots. And what I think is significant here is that the closer we get to the season and we don't hear a peep from the league, we don't hear a peep from any off-the-field courts or authorities, he's not getting suspended this year. At this point, I would be very shocked if there was a resolution off the field for Rashee Rice. And I go back to Alvin Kamara, where it took, he played the entire season after that incident in the nightclub or wherever the hell it was. Played the whole year, then he served suspension a year later. We're probably looking at, and again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't have any inside sources. I'm just trying to read the tea leaves. No information's probably good information when it comes to games played this year. Am I off here? No.
Rashee Rice was a second to third round turn to start the offseason. Now, granted, look, at the end of the day, they did add Worthy and Brown. So I get it. It's not just a suspension that plays into his cost, but I loved Rashee Rice before this offseason, before the suspension talk and the additional weapons. But look, Marquise Brown, I like him. He's had injury concerns, right? He hasn't been able to stay healthy and on the field, right? So you're going to take guys like him possibly who, he's not – if you count how many games Marquise Brown probably misses, it would probably add up to the same amount that Rashee Rice gets suspended. And I don't think Rashee Rice gets suspended this year. To Anthony's point, I'm not a lawyer either, but I thought I saw that the civil case is supposed to be conducted in December. I don't think the NFL is going to do anything until that happens.
Let me interject here before you go, because I just found this. So they're comparing, people out there are comparing the Cameron Sutton suspension, who was just suspended by the league 8 games for violation of the personal conduct policy. His off the field authority case was settled in April.
Yep.
And the NFL just suspended him this week. So if you're saying Rashee Rice might not see a courtroom until December, he's not getting suspended this year.
Yeah, I mean, Cameron Sutton strangled and beat his girlfriend and threw her out a window, pretty much. I'm pretty sure. And then was like on the run, like running from police.
But I'm just saying that's the comp I'm seeing on
I know. But your point, the timeline, right? Like when the case went through, right, and to now, like that's
resolved in April, suspended by the NFL July.
Yeah. So to that point, like I don't think he gets 8 games like Sutton got. 2, I think if he gets anything, it's probably 4, and then they appeal and probably bring it down to 2. I think Kamara got 2 or 3, right? Didn't he get 2? Yeah. And he beat up somebody and got assault and battery charges. Yeah. So I think Rashee Rice will be fine. Taylor Swift is on his side, so that usually helps. There's a little bit of magic there. But all jokes aside, Rice could be – here's my thing. If you think Rice is going to get suspended, it's probably – if it does happen, it's not going to happen mid-season. They're not just going to – I don't think the NFL is going to come down mid-season and say, hey, we're here. We're going to suspend him now, right? They're probably – because, number one, even if it happens in December, right, like the case gets resolved, the Chiefs are a big enough team, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I don't think they're going to suspend one of their star players in December when they could be pushing for a playoff push, or there's primetime games where, they're set up for the Chiefs to play primetime games at the end of the year.
Does the league want to do that?
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't think the league wants to do that. And so my thing is, like, even if he gets suspended, it's going to be early in the season. If let's say he does, it'll be early in the season where if you're in like a best ball tournament, right? Like forgetting redraft, but if you're in best ball, like you don't care, right? Your team's going to be the healthiest it's going to be in the beginning of the season. And by the time week 4, week 5 comes along, if you've already progressed and like have had guys produce outside of Rice, which at the cost you're getting him at, like you're not paying a heavy price for him, like you're going to be fine. And then he's going to produce the rest of the year. And by the time you get to the playoffs and you start moving to the second, third, and fourth round, like Rice is going to be on your team. So like, even if he gets suspended, it's going to be in the beginning of the year. Like that's not enough for me to not draft him, in my opinion.
And we have a comment in here, NXT, regardless of his off the field issues, the Chiefs receiver room's wide open, unpredictable. For me to spend a 5th round pick on any of them, listen, I get it, but if you look at Chiefs wide receiver snaps, Rashee Rice led, MVS second, Justin Watson third. You want to know where Worthy snaps and MVS snaps and Justin Watts snaps, Hollywood Brown snaps, like Rashee Rice is the best receiver on this team.
Yeah.
He earned the trust of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid down the stretch in the postseason when it mattered most. And I think that, like, Patrick Mahomes still needs to develop a rapport with Hollywood. And Hollywood's a veteran. I think that comes along faster. But like Xavier Worthy, he just broke the speed record for John Ross. Remember John Ross? Remember how productive he was in the NFL? Speed's nice. Speed's fun. But you still have to develop as an NFL wide receiver. We already know what Rashee Rice can do in this offense.
Yeah, I agree. Bobby Lane came in here and said it's Rashee, not Rashi. Sorry.
We say names wrong all the time.
Yeah, we're not the best at it. Greg came in and said that he missed the show. We'll listen tomorrow. Oh, good, Greg. Since, Greg, you're here, I'm pretty sure you probably entered, but we are going to give away this Chad Johnson jersey. So I just want to make sure, might as well stick around with us for the next 10 minutes because we're going to do that giveaway shortly. Is there anybody else that you wanted to go over?
No, we can just wrap it up. Just do the giveaway.
Okay, perfect. So let me take a look here.
Put on some giveaway music.
Yeah, go for it.
What do we got here? Let's go to feeding the ducks.
Feeding the ducks. Okay. So we don't exactly have the names here. We just have the emails of everybody, but that's okay. Oh, Greg said he's in UK. Long way to send it. That's all right, Greg. We'll figure it out. Jamie said giving the jersey to me. Well, let's see, Jamie. Hopefully you're on here. Let's shuffle it up a few times and let's give it a spin.
You're going full disclosure. I like it.
Oh yeah. Oh, is that Greg? Oh, Greg. It was so close.
Oh, Deb, one of our longtime great listeners, actually.
Look at that. I think I know Deb. I think she's came in here a couple of times. Is she the one that has
the comments on Twitter? Marilyn Monroe on our
Yes, Marilyn Monroe picture. Yep. I know that one.
Good.
All right. Well, Deb, congratulations. We'll make sure that we'll get that out. We'll reach out to you probably on Twitter. Greg did miss by one, Greg. It was right over your name. Sorry about that. But the good news is we are going to do more giveaways. We have a lot more stuff to do. So tune in. Thanks to everybody who signed up. You'll be attached to our free newsletter going forward. So that's great as well. And then if you're already signed up for the newsletter, you'll be entered next time regardless. So that's a good thing to know as well. So you won't even have to re-sign up for the next one. You might just pop up and miss the show and then say, oh, crap, I won. So but yeah, a lot of exciting stuff we got going on. I don't really know if there's anything else we really need to talk about. No questions in here. So I think we're pretty much good to go.
I just do want to mention one more time. We are going to be partnering with the FFWC and hosting leagues through them. The first one, and we are building. So if you want to play in it, reach out at FF Face Off on Twitter or to one of us personally via DM, and we will get you into the group and put this together. It is a $50 super flex league at the FFWC ran by Full-Time Fantasy. They have high stakes tournaments, mid stakes, low stakes. So the first one we're going to be doing is the $50 super flex. You get paid the top two winners of the league. You get a payout, and then you make the shootout playoffs to where the first prize, I believe, is what, $5,000 to the first place winner.
Yeah, so
it's like
it's like tournament style, right? Like you can win your league and you get paid for that, right?
Well, basically, there's a whole bunch of 12-team leagues, and if you come in the top two, you get a small payout, and then you get entered into the playoffs. And this particular one is best ball format, and I know Zach's in it already. But you want to get in, anybody listening, reach out to us on Twitter. We'll add you to the group and we will get this rolling as soon as all the back end details are sewed up.
Yeah. Sounds like a plan. Yeah. We're excited for it. New partnership. Right. And, get in DM us on Twitter. If you have any extra questions about it, we're happy to go through it. I know Zach's in it as well, but, I think that's really it for us. Right.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap up. We'll be back Friday, possibly with some kind of a live draft. As we're gonna be wrapping them up soon, but at least for this Friday, we'll give one more live draft a shot. As we best ball season kind of ended, and forget for Pete and myself. This is the Face Off Sports Network, sponsored by Girls Gone Wild. If you want to win, you have to tune in. We'll see you next time.